Konnichiwa! Hello, my name is Rachel, and I have just returned from a trip to Tokyo, Japan, as in 2 days ago. It was an amazing trip filled with wonderful food, wonderful culture. It was so incredible to be on the subways, riding with the people, seeing how they live, what they like to eat and read, and how they go about their day. And today I'm going to be talking about all the wonderful foods that we were able to sample while we were there. If you're about to take a trip to Tokyo, I do hope you watch this video so that you can get some ideas, and make sure to mark down these foods on your to-do list so that you make sure you get to sample them before you leave the country. Now, if you're not able to go to Japan, I highly suggest that you look on Pinterest or online and find some recipes from Japanese food, because I think it's so much fun to add in new foods from other cultures into your menu planning for your family. I plan on doing that as well. I'm going to look up some recipes and try to recreate some of the things that we had while we were there. Okay, so foods you must try while you're in Tokyo. The first thing that happens when you step off the airplane and you get into the airport, we flew into Haneda Airport, and even though we had had some food while we were on the trip, after sitting around waiting to figure out things, we got a little bit hungry, and the first thing we went to was a coffee shop. After the coffee shop, we also sat a bit because, you see, our hotel didn't open up until a little bit later. We were super tired and we were trying to figure out what to do with our luggage. And we saw a 7-Eleven store. 7-Eleven is in Japan? I mean, I grew up with those. Yes, there are 7-Elevens and they're called Konbinis. So the Konbinis that you see in Japan are usually 7-Elevens, Lawson's, or Family Marts. And they had one right there in the airport. And they're very tiny, but if you go in there, they have a food section that's ready to eat. The Japanese people really do eat there. The food is very, very good. So we picked up an onigiri. They have meat on a stick, which is like a fried chicken cutlet or a potato croquette. They have fresh salads. They have some yogurt type of drinks and regular drinks. They have some amazing food there. So I highly suggest that you go to a konbini while you're there in Japan, because that's what the locals do. The second thing you'll notice are vending machines. Yes, Japan is known as the land of vending machines. There are vending machines on just about every corner, primarily drinks. You can get a fresh cold water bottle as well as some sodas. But when you look closely, you'll notice that the pictures on those soda drinks, and if you use Google Translate, you'll figure out what those pictures mean. They have different flavors than we are accustomed to. And you know what? I tried one. It was called apple squash. Now, sounds a little funny, but it was delicious. They have a lot of different flavors like sweet potato and I don't know, you go try it out yourself. They also have green barley tea. That is something that most Japanese drink on a daily basis. However, it is not sweetened like we here in America make very sweet Southern iced tea. Don't expect the sugar to be in it. So if that's not your jam, just skip it and go for the sodas. They also have yogurt drinks, and these will come in a cup that's a little bit taller than our standard yogurt cup. And a straw is attached, so you just poke it through the top and the straw extends out, and you can drink your yogurt drink. I've had several of those while I was there. They are delicious. I had banana and strawberry, but they also have like peach, mango, kiwi, other things like that. So for our first breakfast in Japan, we had the option to eat at the local cafe that was connected to the hotel, and they offered us 4 choices, and it was called the American breakfast. Or we could take the coupon and walk down into the subway, and there was a little restaurant there that we could have a traditional Japanese breakfast. The first morning, we decided to go for the American breakfast, and the options were a croque monsieur, which was, in this case, white bread with the ham inside and the cheese melted on the outside, a little green salad with some cherry tomatoes, very, very tiny salad, delicious dressing, and your choice of a coffee or a tea. You could also have it iced, either way. And the other option was a ham sandwich with a tomato and a piece of lettuce with the salad, or cheese waffles with the cheese on top of the waffles with honey, also with the salad. And the fourth option is actually what a lot of Japanese eat. We saw lots of Japanese in the cafe because it was not just for the hotel, it was a real cafe, and the Japanese go into there in the morning before they go off to work, and they eat what was a very thick piece of white bread toast. It must have been like 1.5 inches or 2 inches tall, and they cut it and they eat it. No jam, no spreads, that's just what they eat. So those were our 4 options, and we ended up eating there quite a lot. But the second day, we ate a traditional Japanese breakfast at the other option. And I was so excited to try this. It had a beautifully grilled piece of fish with a crispy skin. The taste was amazing. And it also had a cup of miso soup, a bowl of rice, and it had some egg omelet rolls that were cut into 1-inch wedges. I first thought it might be pieces of mango. I wasn't sure what it was. When I tasted it, it was like a sweet egg omelet all rolled up. And then it also had a cup with a raw egg in it. And then there was another thing that looked like a yogurt cup. And so I picked up the little cup, the yogurt cup, and I looked close and it looked like little dots of beans or something. And my son, who, like I said, is going to be studying college there, he said that is natto, which is fermented soybeans, a very famous Japanese dish, traditional dish that they eat quite often because it's considered very, very healthy. And I was a little bit wary because fermented food is something that I haven't really had much of. So I opened it and I put about half of it into my rice and I stirred it up, and the first thing I noticed is these beans were very, very sticky, as in like chewing gum sticky. And so I was like, And you know what? I ate one bean to begin with, and then mixed with rice, I ate them. They're really not bad at all. It's probably not something I would eat every day. They did have a little bit of a bitter taste to them, but not overly so, and it was a lot better than I expected. So you should try those, just to say that you've tried natto. And then now about that egg. So it was a cup like this and it had a raw egg in it, and I'm like, what do I do with my egg? I did not know the Japanese like to eat raw egg, so I thought maybe you're supposed to like cook it by putting it into the hot miso soup. I mean, I could see the steam coming up from the miso soup. It was so hot. So I took my chopsticks and swirled it around, poured it into the miso soup, stirred it around, and it didn't look like egg drop soup, which is what I thought would happen. And so I was like, okay, so now I have to drink it like this. And I drank it, and guess what? I learned later by asking a genuine, authentic, born and raised in Japan person, and they said, oh no, don't do that. You're supposed to stir it up a little bit and put it over your rice and mix it in. That's how we eat it. I'm like, oh, okay, so next time. So that was my introduction to Japanese breakfast. The next thing is, if you're hungry along the way, there are bakeries all over the place with wonderful pastries and a variety of pastries. Not just your standard croissants or Danish pastries. No, they have a variety with savory fillings, savory toppings. So we did stop by the bakeries and get some pastries as treats on some of the days where we were walking a lot, and they're really, really good. Okay, another thing you'll notice is that there are a lot of Starbucks there in Japan. But these Starbucks are a little bit different in that they have catered to the Japanese taste. And so they do serve a lot of green teas, matcha teas, and hojichi teas. Hojichi, did I say it right? I'm not sure. Anyway, they also have traditional Japanese flavored like desserts. So they are more toward their palate. They're less sweet. My husband ate a few snacks there and I sampled his, and they were delicious. So I think you should try out a Starbucks, not to mention that there is a Starbucks Reserve in Shibuya Crossing. It takes up about 4 stories of the high-rise building, and it is huge and massive and beautiful. I did not get to go there. I did see the outside when I was crossing over. We were in such a hurry, we could not fit that in, and I really, really was sad that I didn't get to go there. I've heard that they have wonderful coffee that they don't sell elsewhere. There's only a handful of Reserves across the world, and this is one of them. So if you can make time, I highly suggest that you do go there. But there's a cafe that you can go to get the authentic, real feel of Japanese tea. And the one I went to is called Nana's Green Tea. Oh my goodness, where's the menu? I loved it so much that I asked, could I please have a copy of the menu? Look at all these drinks. They kindly obliged and they gave me a copy of the menu. This is one of my absolute favorite things that I brought back from my trip. Seriously, because when I look at this, it just makes me so excited. Like, I want to try to make some of these drinks. There are so many, many, many different types of drinks here. And you can see the green ones are matcha based, and the other ones have different types of their tea in them. And so the other side has parfaits and some dessert cakes and lunch foods. The first day I went there, I got this green matcha parfait. Oh my goodness, it was amazing. It had on top 3 mochi balls, which are basically their dessert rice. It's a pounded rice that's sweetened a little bit. Sometimes they have red bean paste in them. And it was a scoop of matcha ice cream, some whipping cream, some more ice cream, and some custard, and some cereal flakes, and some green rectangles of what I think was matcha gelatin kind of things. It was delicious. It was amazing. And I just ate that, and I just wanted it to last forever. And so I had to go back again a second time. And the next time I went, I got lunch there with my husband, and I got the taco salad. This taco salad was so delicious. I think they called it taco rice, and it was served over a bed of rice, but it had very fresh butter lettuce leaves, and it had fresh avocado, some tomatoes, and different beans, different sauce. The meat sauce was so different than our hamburger meat. It was very light, very, very light. That's the best description I can give you, is that the taco rice was so light. It also had an egg on top, like a barely poached egg, and it was just amazing and delicious. And after I finished that, I had this parfait here, which is a hojicha tea and raw chocolate parfait. It was amazing. It had flavors I've never had before of red bean paste in their ice cream raw chocolate squares that were very different than the hard chocolate. They have a more of a fudge-like consistency, kind of sweet, not sweet, a little fruity. It's kind of hard to describe if you've never had raw chocolate before, but it's delicious. And also had the layers of the different ice cream and whipping cream, the red bean paste again. It was amazing. I really want to have this again, both of these again. And because I knew I wouldn't have time to get there again, I ordered a slice of this chocolate matcha green tea cake and brought it to go, and I was able to eat it the day we flew out on the airplane, and it was so good. It's a very dense cake. Unlike all the other desserts we had tasted in Japan are very light and fluffy, this was dense and was delicious. Enough about that. Okay, some other foods that you should try when you're in Japan are the gyoza, which is the word for dumpling. And the dumplings are like those little oval things like this that are crimped along the edges and like half moons or something. They are delicious, and they can be filled with all sorts of different meat fillings, vegetable fillings, but they are really, really tasty. I didn't eat a bad one. Everywhere we went when we had those with our dinner and meals, they were so good. Another food, of course, that you've heard about is ramen. There are ramen houses all over Japan, restaurants that serve ramen topped with all kinds of different toppings. But because we have had ramen here, that was one that was a little bit lower down the priority, so we didn't go there. However, I would like to go there on the next trip if I get to go again. And then there are udon noodles. Udon noodles are a thicker, almost a little bit chewy noodle, and it kind of looks like our spaghetti, but they're a little bit thicker, and they often serve those on as a base and then put maybe a whole slew of vegetables on top, or serve it as a soup. You know, our version of chicken noodle soup. We ate that at a Japanese counter restaurant. I called it a counter restaurant because I'm not sure of the actual name, but it was so hearty, so delicious. I couldn't even eat maybe a third or a half of it. It was so big. But the udon noodle dish that I ordered had some sort of chicken broth, but it tasted very Japanese because it had all the Japanese flavors added. But it had some crab meat, a little bit of chicken, it had some corn, some green beans, some bean sprouts, a lot of cabbage, some little bits of carrot. It was delicious, very home style, and I felt like I was eating at a Japanese diner because we were all up at these tall little counters, and it was so much fun. But that's something that I'd like to create at home. We also noticed that Japan has a lot of fried noodles. Now these are like the tiny little, maybe they're rice noodles. I don't really know because they all turn like this color, orangey brown when they're fried, so I'm not sure what they start with. But those were delicious. They're crunchy, a little bit like a chip, but it's often served with a thickened cabbage vegetable sauce that might have a little bit pieces of meat, maybe pork or chicken, or carrots, cabbage, lots of cabbage. But that's also interesting and different and delicious. Something that we ate more than a couple times was yakitori. Yakitori are Japanese skewers or meat on a stick. And this meat is usually flavored with like a teriyaki sauce, but it can have anything like ginger or sesame or whatever. You know, it's They are delicious, they're freshly grilled, and I highly suggest you try yakitori. And then there's tempura. You know, tempura is basically fried whatever. It could be the fried chicken, the fried pork, the fried shrimp, the fried vegetables. We went to a mall food court and I ordered a plate. I think it was a child's plate because they looked at me funny. They're like, "That's all you want?" I'm like, that's enough, because it was big. And it had one giant shrimp about this long. And then it had 3 pieces of fried chicken, which were delicious. And then it had a huge mound, I mean like this big, of shredded cabbage, very finely shredded cabbage. And then there's a little tiny dish like this of sauce to pour over my cabbage. It was so good. I think it had something like a miso ginger dressing for it. Delicious. I have not ever been too fond of cabbage here, but I love the way they serve the cabbage. So I'm gonna make that at home and see if my kids like it. And then the crowning food experience was by mistake, actually. We were in a mall food court again, and my husband was looking at the displays because remember I told you, or did I tell you, that in Japan, they have these easels where they display the menu, and there's a photo of each dish. And not only that, most restaurants also have a full plate of that meal recreated in like plastic. It's like plastic food, but it looks really good. And so you can actually look in the window display at the actual plates and see what you want to order based on what it looks like. And you know exactly the portion size and exactly what you're going to get when you order that. So my husband had seen this display of this meat, and it looked a little bit raw to me, but he's like, "I'd like that." It looked like beef, and it had some really nice sides to it. He's like, "I think I want that." And we were like, "Oh," and I said, "Well, I want that tempura over there because I like tempura. I want to try that again." And I said, "You know, can we maybe, you get your meal, I get mine, and we can eat in the food court?" But the restaurant people are like, no, you come into our restaurant, because all these restaurants had seating, or you could sit in the middle. And they're like, no, you need to sit inside. So we went inside having no clue what we were about to embark on. And we sat down and we're like, oh my goodness, there was a grill in the center of the table, and they brought out 2 huge plates of all this beautifully plated Wagyu beef. If you've never heard of Wagyu beef, it is like the top of the top of the top of the beef. It's marbled with a just so percentage of fat. I don't even know exactly what that, how much it is, but it had Wagyu beef cuts very thinly, different bites of appetizers. It had miso soup, rice. We also, me not knowing we were gonna get this huge plate, I had ordered a Japanese scallion pancake, and that thing came out, was this big, and we didn't need that, but we ended up eating almost all of it. The food was so good, so good. But I'll tell you, when the food first arrived, we didn't know what to do. The grill had been turned on, it was hot, we were sitting there, but it was nice and air conditioned inside. We were like, what do we do next? He brought out a little bowl like this that had this white lump in it. We're like, what's that? And he gave us the tongs. He said, bye. And we're like, we sat there for the longest time. And the waiter came back and checked on us, and I think he could tell we had no idea what we were doing. And he's like, oh, I show you. And he took the tongs, he took that little white lump in his tongs, and then he scraped it over the grill, showing us that that was some sort of fat that melted and it greased the grill so that our meat wouldn't stick. And then we took our tongs and we lit it. He says 15, he could speak a tiny bit of English, like 15 seconds, 15 to 20 seconds. So we would lay our meat on the grill, or our vegetables or whatever. They had some squash also, and lay it on there for just a little bit, flip it over, and then you had 2 different sauces to dip it in. The taste was unlike anything I've ever had before, and I will say that was the best beef I've ever had. My husband said the same, like it's literally the best beef we've ever had in our life, and the experience of sitting there, having all these flavors on our plate, and tasting that, and fresh cooked, was just a wonderful, wonderful experience. It was the most expensive meal. I want to say, I think that the menu said it was around either 3,200 or 3,800 yen per person, which equaled to probably $70. But compared to an American restaurant, that was pricey, but compared to an eating out experience here in the States, you could easily spend that, in way more going out to a fine dining. So I highly recommend that if you have the time and money to do so. Now, another thing that we didn't get to do, but I kept my eye open for, was conveyor belt sushi. I really wanted to go to one of those, but sadly we did not come across them when we were out and about, and it was such as that our timing was whenever we finally got around to eat, it was either really late in the day, like 8 p.m., but we would basically duck into the nearest restaurant that looked good. So I did not get to eat at a conveyor belt sushi restaurant, but please do so. Also, in Tokyo Station is that sushi restaurant, which is famous. You probably can't even get a seat there because it's been around for so long and it's so highly rated that they probably have reservations. I don't know, I didn't check into that, but I really wanted to walk there and go see it. There's a documentary and I can't remember the name of it, but I watched it years ago and I've never forgotten that down in the station there is a sushi restaurant and he only has a few chairs and he makes it right there in front of you, and it makes exquisite, amazing sushi. So there are other sushi places that we did pass, but at the time we were hungry for this, that, or the other, and I regret not stopping into those. I personally did not get to eat sushi there, although my husband and my son did. They chose it from some of the basement foods, which is what I'm going to talk about next. Something that absolutely floored us was when we got off the subway one time. We were like, we need to find some food. What do we do? We're going to go into that mall. Maybe there'll be a food court. So we went into a mall called Ginza 6, and we found ourselves on a level in the middle of like some parking garage area, and we're like, what do we do? And we saw B1 and it looked like there was a fork and a knife or something on the side. We're like, oh, food, we'll go down there. So we went down basement 1, basement 2. Oh my goodness. There was what I would call a gourmet food market. Different vendors had their own little market stalls and they sold their specialty. I have never seen food so amazing all together under one roof. There were yakitori of all different kinds with meatballs, with different types of meat, with different seasonings, different toppings. There were egg rolls of all different kinds. I got some of those. I got one that had plum in it, like bits of plum in it, and another kind. It was amazing, wonderful tasting. They had bento boxes. That's another food you need to try. Japan is known for their bento box, and back in the day, moms used to pack these little cute bento boxes full of adorable little lunches for their kids, like, you know, they would have their rice balls and they would have the, you gotta try rice balls. Did I mention onigiri? I haven't, I need to talk about that. So they would pack, so Japanese moms used to pack cute bento boxes. A bento box is basically a box with dividers in it, and you could have the portions of like rice or the meat or the vegetables or the sauces, and it's just beautifully and artfully arranged. But they had those ready to go, and the boxes look like real wood, but they're actually styrofoam that have liners that look like. My husband got one of those, and they have sushi in it. They have just all different kinds to choose from. There were also vendors that had salads that were just gorgeous, like amazing salads. I would eat any of them. They had ones that sold like cabbage type of things. They had ones that sold croquettes and ones that sold tempura. They had actually ones that sold the French macaroons, or no, they had ones that actually sold like French pastries and French madeleines as well. There were also ones that sold the Japanese pancake called Dorayaki. I highly recommend that you taste this. I actually knew about this before I went to Japan, and my son and I have made those on 2 occasions, and I wanted to taste the real thing. There was a movie that I watched, and I can't remember the title, that had in it the story of dorayaki, and so we made that recipe after watching that movie. So I tasted dorayaki there. Their bean paste was much better than the one that I had made. It's very sweet, very creamy, not quite as creamy as like Hanuta, not quite as creamy as Nutella. Absolutely delicious. So I highly recommend you try that. It's a distinctly different flavor than you've ever tried before. And so our experience is that a lot of the malls have basement food as well as the stations do. Kichijoji also has a wonderful basement floor full of food stations, markets, I don't know what you call them, where they sell all manner and kinds of foods, cakes, desserts, all kinds of things. So if you're hungry, you can find food in Japan. However, I do want to mention that you can't really eat on the go like we do here in America. I don't know about you, but I tend to take a drink from my water bottle when I'm walking about, and I also like snack. I take things out of my purse and just pop them into my mouth. No, that's a no-no. You would not eat on the subway. You would not eat when walking on the street or even drink. You would step aside, stand next to the building or next to the Konbini or next to wherever and eat. Or in the case of these basement food places, we asked, because we're like, where do we eat this? Because we need to eat it. There were no chairs, no benches. They said, oh, go to the 8th floor. And up there were open tables where you could sit and eat your food that you purchased. So that's what we did. It was a beautiful place which overlooked the city. So, but getting back to those rice balls, onigiri is another food that you absolutely must have. It's so Japanese, and onigiri just means a rice ball. So they use sticky rice, and sometimes they have flakes added to it of seaweed or other seasonings like salmon or something. And the onigiri inside could have in it a little piece of real salmon, tuna, or vegetables like cucumber or pickles or radishes, and they're delicious. They're one of the go-to snacks that Japanese like to take in their lunches. But here I'm going to show you the haul of what I brought back from Japan. First and foremost is this matcha powder. We couldn't leave Japan without it. This is the whisk to go with the matcha, by the way. And of course, I had to bring home a dorayaki. We ate so many of these while we're there. My son likes them as well. And I had to bring just one home so that I could taste it once again. These are basically a pancake filled with red bean paste. And red bean pastes are made of adzuki beans that are boiled for a long time and simmered. And then sugar is added and stirred in until it the water evaporates a little bit and it's to a thickened paste. But I highly recommend that you try this. I love them. They also have steamed buns that have this paste in it, and you'll also find red bean paste in a lot of other treats such as the mochi or the wagashi. So I also went to a multi-level grocery store, and in there they had a bunch of beautifully individually wrapped sweets and treats. This is one little green tea cake that I brought back, as well as some little rice crackers. Isn't that pretty? These are the kind of things that you would gift to others. And Japanese have this custom of giving food gifts to other people when they come to visit or for special occasions. And you'll find lots and lots of these beautifully wrapped sweets and salty snacks. Here's another sweet treat that I got. I don't really know what this tastes like, so I'll have to wait and see. When I was shopping in the Shinjuku train station, I came across Dandelion Chocolate. I cannot believe that they had this there because this is based in Seattle, Washington, and I've known about it for a while because I'm a chocolate aficionado. I love chocolate, I love dark chocolate, and I had my eye on wanting to taste their chocolate a long time ago. And when I came across this, I knew that I just wanted to try it. So the person who was there as a sales clerk let me sample 2 different types, and this is the one that I selected. He first asked, what do I look for in a chocolate? And I said I wanted extra dark, not so sweet, but a little bit sweet, and I wanted a fruity taste. And this one has notes of cherry in it. It doesn't have cherries in it, but it has a little note of cherry, so I can't wait to eat this bar. The sample that I had was really good. And the day before we left to come back home, my son's host family gave him these 2 packages to give to my husband and I. It just blew us away that they would offer us these gifts. Well, this is what she gave me, this beautiful box with all these, there's 5 dishes in here of the flour. The flour is one of the symbol, and these little round dishes that you can put food in and put on your serving tray. Isn't that so sweet of her? I'm really so thankful that she is taking care of our son while he's there in college, and it was so sweet of her to think of us. And then she also gave us this large box. So I want to show you what sweets and treats are in here. Let's open this box. And here you can see how these are individually wrapped. They're beautifully wrapped, and although I can't read this, the fact that it's green paper leads me to believe that this might be matcha. We're gonna share this as a family. It's a traditional Japanese sweet that has been around for centuries, and it's basically white rice flour which has been pounded into these beautifully decorated little rosettes, flowers, shapes. They also are made into mochi, which is what we can find here in international grocery stores here in America. But the actual agashi over there is just so artful and so beautiful. And we had that when we went to the Japanese gardens. We went on a walking tour, and our hosts took us to a tea house inside the garden, and we were able to do just a tiny part of the tea ceremony. And we had a tiny wagashi, which was, mine was, I'll show you a picture, little tiny pink and cream colored one. And you cut it with a special aromatic wood stick and then into quarters. And then you would eat that first, and then you would pick up your bowl. This is not the right kind of bowl, but you would pick up your bowl with your right hand like this, cup it with your left, and then you would drink in 2 or 3 sips your entire matcha tea and then set it back down. And so we were able to try that. But wagashi sweets are sold in a lot of the train stations, as well as when you go travel, like at Mount Fuji, the gift shops have this. So all over you will find shops that have beautifully wrapped in packages ready for gift giving wagashi sweets. Don't miss these, and you want to bring some home for your friends and family to try. Another traditional Japanese snack that you've got to try are rice crackers. They have, like we have chips here in America, they have rice crackers, and they have like an entire shelves and shelves full of them of all different flavors with sweet or salty or sour or whatever, sesame seeds on it, or seaweed bits or fish bits. We even saw some fish head kind of things. But they taste amazing, they're very crunchy, and they satisfy that desire for something salty and crunchy. Another place that is fun to go to is the Robot Cafe. I had heard about this, and I was so surprised when at the end of our walking tour, our guides walked past and said, oh, by the way, you got to peek in here. This is a robot cafe. If there's a robot when you first walk in, and it speaks to you wonderful English, and we didn't really know what was going on. We didn't expect, we didn't know what to do. And it says you can order either using the robot service, or you can order and sit at other chairs and not use the robot service. There's an extra charge for using the robots, and it's basically they employ people who have disabilities, so it gives them a job and a place to grow in confidence in their workplace, which I think is a wonderful thing. And so we ate there and had a smoothie. It was extremely fresh, amazing fruit and yogurt smoothie. It was delicious. While we went to Mount Fuji, we had a volcano cake. So this must be their thing, making cakes in the shape of things. And that the volcano cake was a melon cake. It was pale green. No, it wasn't filled with any cream, and it was sprinkled on top with some cocoa and some powdered sugar. And it was extremely light, very, very fluffy, almost had the consistency of an angel food cake when you pull it apart. And last but not least here, I went to the grocery store that was across the street from our hotel, and I stood around looking for the seasonings that you add to onigiri. Onigiri is basically sticky rice that is molded and shaped into a ball or into a triangle shape, and inside can be, other ingredients can be added inside, such as salmon or tuna or vegetables. Finally, this girl came by who was kind of young, and I thought, I'll ask her. So I had my Google Translate, and I said, can you please show me the seasonings that go into onigiri? And she said, you need this one, which is salmon, and you need, I got 2 of those. You need this one, which is a mixture, and you need this one, and then she's like, and this one is great too, so you can just sprinkle on into soups or something. So then I ended up getting some matcha powder from them. So I've got a nice little assortment of some seasonings that I can add to our meals so that we can recreate a little bit of the flavors that we had while we were there in Japan. I have one more haul that I want to show you, and it is the place settings that I bought from Japan so that I can set up a Japanese meal. I was so enamored with the arrangement of how the Japanese serve food in a restaurant. They are so artistic and creative with how they display it. So food often comes on a tray like this, and it will have so many little dishes of food. There might be one larger bowl. If you're ordering like a soup or something, it might be a giant bowl, but they're still going to have a little tiny container of some sort of sauce, your soup spoon, as well as your chopsticks, your drinking cup, and there's always a little wet towelette to wash your hands. But when I went shopping, I could not seem to find complete sets. Or there'd be a rice bowl, but not a cup to match, or there'd be tiny little plates or shallow bowls or dipping sauce things. And then I realized that even in the restaurants, they like this idea of adding different colors and different pieces from other sets to complete the beautiful arrangement. So that's what I ended up doing. I found these yellow dishes in a beautiful gift shop in Kichijoji Station. And they have the oval plate, this little tiny round one that looks like it has little flower petal seeds on it, a square plate that's textured with leaves around it, and this little small rice bowl. And this tiny little, so you can see that even these are different. There's no cup to match this, so I was on the hunt for a cup. And I find that a lot of the cups that miso soup is served in are actually like they're part of a teacup set. And I came across this wood set, and I thought this would be a beautiful thing to add to this color palette. So this could be a dish that might have a green salad in it. It could also be the rice bowl. It could also be a soup. And so I'm going to put this here. I found this beautiful flower plate. Japanese love to have flower motifs in a lot of their design because of their sakura trees. The cherry blossoms are a huge thing that Japanese look forward to every spring. And so you'll find a lot of cherry blossom designs everywhere. This one can be put on top of a plate or separate on its own. This is a chopsticks rest, and so I bought this tiny little flower blossom, and I bought some matching yellow ochre chopsticks that I can rest on that little tray. I found this little blossom, so I can put that there. And I also found a larger rice bowl, so I can interchange. I wouldn't use all of these at the same time. Obviously, that's too much to put on the tray and also too much food. But I thought this was just beautiful. And this is a traditional soup spoon. You would eat with your chopsticks, and I saw that a lot of these would hold it under their chopsticks as they were eating their noodles like this, so that they wouldn't drip on their clothes or the table or whatever. And also, I hunted and found these little pottery bowls for sauces. Often you'll find that every meal that is served has at least one, but usually two sauces. It might be teriyaki sauce, it might be a vinaigrette, it might be a type of mayonnaise mixed with other things in it to put on your dishes. So I have a complete set here ready to go. Now all I need is to collect some Japanese recipes and create a Japanese meal. I want to show you some pictures from the different meals that we ate. There are so many things there that we didn't even get to. We did eat at a Korean barbecue, and another thing we didn't get to was the Starbucks Reserve. There are only a few Starbucks Reserves in the world, and there's a huge one that overlooks Shibuya Crossing. Shibuya Crossing has this giant Starbucks Reserve. I think it's 4 floors, and it overlooks the crossing, so you can watch the people as they go about. And we really wanted to get there. We did walk past it, and I filmed walking past the Starbucks Reserve as well as the people. There weren't that many people there that day, but we were in such a hurry to get to meet my son's host family. So that will have to wait for another trip. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope it inspires you to go and be creative today. Make some art or go make some new recipes and figure out what it is that you want to do today and be creative. Now go celebrate the life that you're gifted.